Hello everyone, welcome to ChessBizer, your wise choice to improve chess. In today's video, I am going to show you a very interesting game played between Praggnanandhaa Ramesh Babu and Ju Wenjun. And this game was played in Charity Cup 2020 round number 3. So without any further ado, let's get started. So in this game, Prag was handling the white pieces and he opened the game with a knight f3. So the game continued with pawn to d5 by Ju Wenjun and then g3, knight f6, bishop to g2, e6, and now castles. So bishop e7 and then b3, trying to venture out the dark square bishop and also to try to expand on the queen side with the c4 sometimes later. And here Ju Wenjun castled. So after bishop to b2, c5 gaining more space in the center, and then c4 hitting in the center or challenging the center, pawn to d4, and then e3 again. Ju Wenjun has gained much space in the center, and now Prag is trying to challenge it, right? So here she played knight c6, and here if you wondering about pushing the pawn further like this, and it is not going to help black because it naturally activates the bishop, and also we can play the move knight e5 and it would be very difficult to defend the pawn. So any point of time you don't want to push a pawn in the center like this because it is going to be very difficult for defend. So e3, knight c6, development, more development. So e takes d4, c takes d4, and now rook e1, and after that she played a5. So gaining more space on the queen side now. So here Prag fixed the pawn on d3, and here Ju Wenjun played bishop to d6, and the better move was to play bishop to c5 because of the following variation. Let's say knight e5, knight takes knight, rook takes knight, and then knight to d7 hitting the rook. The rook goes back to e2, and then black could continue with e5, and even after knight d2, even I think the queen rook can also join the join in the center of the board, so that this pawn will be safe, and it is actually cramping down the white's position, right? So that is why the bishop c5 line was good for black, but she played bishop d6, and here simply Prag took the pawn here. So it's a tactical move. So knight takes d4, bishop takes d4 now. So bishop takes g3, and the next takes g3, queen takes d4. So here Prag needs to figure out this knight. So he played a knight a3 immediately, and as far as black's development is concerned, he has to connect the she has to connect the rook, sorry. So and the bishop has to develop, right? So she played rook to d8. So here the immediate better choice for white is to play knight to b5, gaining some time on queen. And once the queen goes, the queen can take on d3, because after queen takes d3, rook takes d3, rook a d1, after rook to d7, I think white is better. So going back in the game, he played queen e2. So you may be thinking about capturing the free pawn on e3, which is d3 hanging, but then it's a problem for black now. It's because after rook a d1 you have a very big problem on the back rank. So once you save the queen, you got the mate. So here after queen b6, retreating the queen, he went queen e3, trying to exchange the queens of the board. See, this pawn structure is definitely going to benefit white in the long run. I think that's why Prag is going for an ending. So queen takes e3, rook takes e3. Here as we mentioned that earlier, Prag had the developmental problem with the knight. Now black is having the problem with the bishop. So the bishop cannot move immediately because of the constant threat of capturing on b7 with the light square bishop. So that means something like rook b8 would help to develop the bishop and to connect the rooks. So the line can go like rook d1, b6, d4, bishop b7, d5, e takes d5, and even after c takes d5, white has created a passer, but that could be blocked with the knight back to e8, and then putting the knight into d6 square. So that's the idea. So anyway, but in the game after rook takes e3, she played a4, and that's a mistake. It's because she is intending to open the file for a rook, but the problem is Prag doesn't have to react for this, doesn't have to capture here. Sorry about that. So we can simply push the pawn forward so that we can show this majority is going to create some problem, and here white is already better. So bishop d7, and after b5, here yeah, so after b5, rook a b8 defending the pawn. So d4, bishop e8, opening the rook's eyes, rook d1. So trying to double it on the d file, I think. So b6 now, the fixing the pawn, but I think white, I think he can push the pawn forward, right? So because of some tactical reason that you will see in a moment. So rook e d3, king f8, rook 3 d2, and here the better move for black, I think she played h5. So instead of that, she could have tried a rook bc8 also. That is also one of the choice. So here after h5, c5 he played. So after knight to d5, yeah, here if you think about thinking about, okay, captures, and then captures, you can exchange one pair of rook. And if you are thinking about winning the pawn here, you are miscalculated something, because after this move your bishop is gone. That is why it is losing for black in this variation. So she played knight to d5, blocking everything. So he pushed the pawn and created the passer now. So c6, so f6, trying to do something in the king side. So bishop takes d5, rook takes d5, and now he here Prag played rook b2. It looks like it's a misery. It's like a different move, because you were doubled on the d file, but now you have moved your rook to b2. So what's the point? And even this move is coming, or she could even double and try to win this pawn. But now the idea is very simple. Prag wants to go to b4 and pick up this pawn, so that he can run this pawn also. So I think that's the idea. So here she went king e7 after rook b4, threatening the pawn. She pushed the pawn, so we cannot take because of the tactical reason. So knight c4, bringing the knight into the game finally. So rook takes d4, rook takes d4, and then e takes d4. It looks like Ju Wenjun has created the passer now, but it's a weak passer comparing our passer, because it's already on the 6th rank. That we only need 2 squares to reach the queening square, right? And I think black needs 3 squares, but then it is not easy to push the pawn, because our king is near and the pieces are already nearby, so it can be captured. So after c7 we are threatening the rook now, and here we are going for a tactical line. It's a small tactics. After rook c8, knight takes b6, and here Ju Wenjun captured on c7 and landed with this fork. So knight to d5 check. After king d6, knight takes c7, king takes c7, rook takes a4, and then after d3, Prag played this check, rook c4 check, king b6, pawn to a4, consolidating the weakness. And after bishop f7, Prag gave this check, rook c6 check, king a5, rook a6 check. And after king b4, he played rook d6. And in this position, Ju Wenjun resigned the game. So if the game let's see some of the sample variation here. Let's say the game continues with the king c3. So trying to pass the passer. So b6, d2, and then after b7, bishop b3 can be played to stop the, or trying to guard with one more piece the queening square. So we can get the queen here, and after queening, rook takes d1 and then bishop takes d1, and we can even play pawn to a5 and get new queen. So that is why, considering this ending, I think Ju Wenjun has resigned the game. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And what do you think about recent victories of Praggnanandhaa? He defeated world champion Magnus Carlsen the last month, and now the women world champion. And again, in the 8th round of this same tournament, he defeated Ding Liren, the world number 3, one of the best and a strong player among top 10 players, right? So yeah, let me know your ideas, thoughts in the comment section below. And if you are watching the channel for the first time, please subscribe the channel and press the bell icon to get notified for the future videos. As usual, this is Chess Wiser, your wise choice to improve your chess.